Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Think Tank Sports. Think Tank Sports, where we think and you listen. Check us out on the socials if you would be so kind, Facebook, Twitter, and the IG. And listen to us on Spotify for podcasters or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And watch us on YouTube as we continue our YouTube journey. Oh, well, we took a break from the Yankees, and rightfully so. Uh, Mike and I just were like, there's nothing good to talk about. We can't spin it. We don't want to be doom and gloom for half hour, 40 minutes. So enough of that. But, it's been now 2 weeks. The Yankees, some good, positive, I think, storylines. And so we thought, well, let's connect back with our Yankees and just, some thoughts on the some of the changes they've made and how they've played the last few weeks and what the rest of the 19 games left in the Major League Baseball season, a season that seems like it goes on forever. And all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, there's less than 20 games left. So we're going to talk a little Yankees, and we're going to hit up as Mike likes to call it, the second most popular sport, some NCAA college football. Lots of good stuff going on there and lots of compelling storylines. But first and foremost, Mike, how the heck are you?
I'm doing okay, buddy. I'm a little sports wise. I'm definitely not having the best time of my life. The Yankees are a major disappointment this season. Last place, 19 games out, battling for 500. Not certainly what we thought we would be dealing with. Um, as if anyone follows us for our football coverage, my New York Giants didn't exactly start the season off with a bang. So we come in here recording on Monday, September 11th. Excited for the Buffalo Bills for sure, Dave. As I see even though it's a baseball podcast today, you're on your Bills game as they have the big Monday Night Football matchup tonight against the Jets. Sucks. And we'll see how that plays out. But like you said, we're still watch baseball. We're still big baseball fans, and certainly as the playoffs get here and ramp up, we'll connect with you guys more often. But you're right, Dave. The Yankees, and you said it before we came on, kind of waved the white flag that we all knew needed to come, and got rid of Donaldson and made some moves and brought up what we've been pining for in Austin Wells and the Martian Jason Dominguez. And team wise, they went on a little bit of a nice little fun run. That beat the Astros, 2 out of 3 from the Tigers. And then here we are against Milwaukee. We'll get into the double no hitter they had going last night.
Yeah,
but
crazy.
really a more relaxed feel around the team. Unfortunately, it's because of how poorly they played to start the season. There's really nothing to push for.
Yeah.
But you can see everyone just kind of take a collective breath and say, okay, we've accepted our fate for this season. And let's, get back to what has gotten us previous success. So the young kids come up and Jason Dominguez just impresses the heck out of me from the start, Dave. I don't know about you, and Wells as well, but just everything we've heard since he was drafted. They've had an eye on him since he was 15 years old. They pick him when he's 18. He's up early, relatively in his baseball clock. He's ahead of the schedule as far as being in the majors in 2023. And boy, the power, the easy athleticism. Maybe needs some improvement in the baseball IQ department, but we can work on that with experience. But let's start with that positive, Dave. Jason Dominguez, the Martian, the future's bright with him, huh?
Oh, no doubt. I mean, look, he gets called up, right? So he gets called up, I think, the Wednesday of that week.
Yes.
And or rumored had it Wednesday, then Thursday, this is now August 31st, he gets called up. And we're looking at the schedule, and they're going to Houston for 3 games. Justin Verlander on the mound Friday night. here's the rookie up against Verlander. And the first swing that he gets in the major leagues, he hits a home run off of Justin Verlander. And, just, I mean, what are you going to say? It's a
Right.
storybook beginning, and he just continues with, some other big hits and some more home runs. Um, just kind of exactly, I think, what Yankee fans were hoping for, right? He comes up and he doesn't suck. I mean, let's be honest. In a season of suck, we needed some positive from somebody, and we got it in Jason Dominguez. Um, just a great start. Love to
Yeah,
see
he
him out there in center field. Obviously with the Yankees' storied history of center fielders, Dominguez, just fitting right in. And, listening to the other players and Boone just say he just feels like he's settled right in and he's been there. And just how they have said you just don't see that. There were, since Judge was like the other group of baby bombers in 2017, and now he's the old guy, if you will.
right.
And him saying, gee, we were good, but these guys, they are, with him and Wells, Peraza a little bit, Pereira certainly as well. They
Yeah,
just feel like they have a good sense of the game and they're not overwhelmed by the moment, I think is kind of what Judge was saying. So good
I
stuff
think
there.
for the group of them, Dave, they feel like they haven't been ruined by the Yankees coaching staff at the professional level. They're hitting the ball the other way for power.
Give them
They're
time. Give
not.
them time.
I know. They're taking pitches, but they're not letting good pitches go by. They're not taking
Yes.
pitches just so they can get to a 3-2 count. They're taking the right pitches. That the command of the strike zone at a young age is so impressive for all of them. But Dominguez, just to throw some numbers at you, gets 31 at bats. He hits 258, 8 hits, 4 of which are home runs, and one of which is a double. 7 RBIs. He has a 980 OPS. He did strike out 8 times, walked twice, and stole a base. So, I mean, for the small amount of time he's been up, that's like you said, a better than good start. I think even more than I would have expected out of anybody. Whether you
Yeah.
see some of the top prospects of the past come up all over Major League Baseball, they would be happy with this start. So, yeah, that's great. And that 4 that you just mentioned, those younger kids, and it is weird to hear you say Judge be one of the old guys, but you're right.
Yeah.
It's crazy. What I have a question about for the Yankee organization is where's the young pitching?
Yeah.
Do you want to go there with the pitchers, or is there anyone else you wanted to talk about offensively?
Well, no, I think it's fine. I think, you look at like Clark Schmidt, he has been,
Okay.
as good as a lot of starters as far as innings and consistency over the second half of the season. He's just been great. He was somebody that they've gone back and forth with over the last few years. Like, last year he was in the bullpen a lot, and now he gets the opportunity to start, and he's the game is delayed tonight against the Red Sox, but he's starting tonight. He's 9-8 with a 4.54 ERA, considering how high it got early in the year. The fact that he's been able to bring that down a lot, I think is exciting.
Yep.
But that's it though. We have the Luis Severino, let's call it experiment, which is probably done. I would think. He was just horrible, label himself as the worst pitcher in the league, and he was. So he was
Yeah.
not, it wasn't inaccurate.
I
And
appreciate
then,
his honesty, but let's
yeah,
change that up a little. Yeah.
yeah, right. So then he pitches great for 4 or 5 starts, and then, hurts his,
Side or whatever.
side,
The lat. Yeah.
pitching the other day, and now he's done for the year and his contract is up. I would be really surprised to see Luis Severino back. Um, so you've got Cole, you've got Schmidt, Carlos Rodon obviously signed for the long term. Yeah,
Frankie
there's that.
Montas is in the witness protection program.
Right, Montas,
But
he's going to be gone. Um, as far as young pitching, it's not there, Mike. And
I guess they're blowing off Nestor Cortez, but he's really had a lost year.
yeah,
Um,
but
this
I wouldn't
season with the
consider him. You said
injuries.
young pitchers.
Yeah,
I
that's
don't
true.
consider
That's true.
him to be like a young pitcher. Certainly,
You're right.
Nestor Cortez comes back, and it's a valid point, Mike, because I completely forgot about him. Um, so I mean, that's for if Rodon could continue to bounce back the way he has, and
Mm-hmm.
not be injured and have a full spring training and get into things next year, you would expect more from him. But yeah, as far as young arms, I don't really see it. I mean, we've talked about Devi Garcia, but he seems to be just
Right.
buried in the doghouse somewhere. Yeah, I mean, the Yankees need some young pitching. My guess is from the minors that the folks that they have are just you
Just not
know
doing it. Yeah.
well, and just are too young right now. They're just not. There's
Right.
nobody. There's no young guys in waiting that you think, oh, okay, these guys can make the roster next spring. And no,
Right.
it's not that. So what does that leave? That leaves the Yankees looking at free agency again. Which okay is fine. But when you look at some of the things, particularly if you look at this last year, I mean, Montas was a complete failure. Rodon, you can't control the injuries, but I mean, he pretty much a lost season for him too. So
Right.
you would much rather have some young pitching there. Sorry, I went on and on a little bit to
No,
answer your
no, it's good.
question, but
No.
I think it is a real valid concern for the Yankees. And then, of course, the Cashman Boone thing, which everybody loves to say, well, one of these is going to be gone and do this and do that. And Mike, I don't know about you, but I just have the feeling like both of them are going to be back next year. Um,
I
you know,
think Cashman will be back. I'm 50-50 on Boone. You're right. I do not get the sense of urgency or gloom and doom that we probably should for any other owner. Maybe not any other owner, but most competitive owners. But also, I don't know. I don't know. Cashman's coming back. I think that when they signed him last year, it was clear that he had just one more contract, and he needs to divorce himself from Boone. And then my question is, what kind of manager are they going to bring in? And we'll talk about this, in the off season, and if it does happen.
yeah,
But you know, who else are you going to get? Where are the different skill sets going to be? Until the Yankees decide, we say this every podcast,
yeah,
who's in charge? Are the analytics people in charge? Are the baseball people in charge? Is the manager and the general manager in charge? If one of those three entities doesn't rise to the top and seize power, like it's Game of Thrones or something here,
yeah,
we need, we need that. But overall, watching these games, now I said there's 19 games left. We want to, stay positive. The Yankees are 71-72. So obviously we want to finish above 500. I guess I never thought that would come out of my mouth this season, but certainly we want to continue to play competitive baseball. And we saw that last night with this. You say, Mike, how can they be competitive? They got no hit for 10 innings with the Brewers. But they did win the game in 13. So,
yeah,
they hung in there. Now, Cole and Burns really had a duel for the ages. Both of them came out with less than 110 pitches, but still, we'd love to see them continue. But it's just not going to in this day and age. I
no,
saw some articles today about, what happened to Major League Baseball. Why were these guys pulled out of the game? Well, that's just the way it is now. I can't believe
yep,
you're even writing this article.
yeah.
Kind of thing.
Cole
But
Cole pulled after 7, Burns after 8.
right,
Yeah, I mean, you can think of you can go back in history and see so many games where pitchers never would have been pulled when they're throwing a no hitter in the
right,
7th and 8th innings. But this is the generation that we're in. Yeah, and kudos to the Yankees because they very well could have, folded up their tent here. Um, and they had to battle in the extra innings. I mean,
Sure.
so no hit, scoreless going into the 10th inning. The game ends up being 4-3.
Right.
So, I mean, that's,
Right.
from that perspective, it was an offensive explosion. Uh, you know, Milwaukee gets, Milwaukee gets a run. The Yankees tie it up. Milwaukee gets 2 runs. Stanton comes back up and homers to tie it. And then Higashioka gets the big hit to drive in the winning run.
Right.
That's an offensive explosion. But if you think
For
about
the
this,
Yankees, it is. Yeah.
right? But for this Yankees team, 3 weeks ago,
Right.
that just doesn't happen. And to Mike's point about they threw up the white flag and everybody kind of relaxed. I think you saw a little bit of that in this game. But yeah, I
It was
agree
a
with
weird
you.
celebration. Like Stanton hits the home run, and everybody's like running on the field to celebrate, but not really. Yeah, I don't know. It was just a very strange feeling. We're happy, but we're not too happy because we don't want to offend our fans because we know we suck. But we're also very happy that we won this tough game. It's just a weird, intersection of emotions there.
Yeah. Yep, for sure.
Not to mention that everybody is probably watching football, although the local New York teams weren't playing at that time. Thank goodness.
Yeah. Yep. But yeah, so nice thing, that again, the Yankees are 8 games out of the wild card with 19 to go. I mean, almost insurmountable. Although I did think
so
back to, and
there's
this,
a chance.
yeah, and this does honestly, Mike, and I love your opinion on this because I've thought about this the last couple of weeks just because the Yankees have been so far out. One meltdown that does not get talked about enough is the California. I believe they were still the California Angels then.
Angels, yeah.
Remember, they had a 7-game lead with 7 games to go in 1995 and lost all 7 games to, and ended up Seattle ends up tying them and they go to a 1-game playoff, which Randy Johnson pitches. And of course, Seattle wins. We know the Yankees go on and play, the Mariners in this epic 5-game series, but that does not get talked about enough. When you talk about colossal collapses, now maybe it's because it was the Angels in Seattle and there's some East Coast, West Coast bias. And I'm not saying the Yankees are going to do that. But it's one of those collapses that people just do not talk about. I mean, just
monumental.
think about any of your team, whoever you are listening out there are tens of fans. Think about your team having a 7-game lead with 7 games to go and losing all 7 and then losing a 1-game playoff.
Ugh.
I mean, that's just crushing.
It's like being up 3-0 against your bitter rival heading to the World Series, and then not only losing that series, but watching that rival go on and win their first World Series in 80 years.
86,
like not that we've
years.
Experienced that.
No, we have not experienced that. But anyways, things to think about.
Dave, real quick, and we'll transfer if you're ready to college football.
Yes.
So we know the Yankees aren't going to make the playoffs as rosy as you just painted that picture, which I appreciate your optimism.
Yep.
Give me a team you're going to root for in the playoffs. Let's adopt here at Think Tank Sports. We can at least adopt a program. I'll give you mine since I kind of sprung that on you. The team that I have had an eye on for a couple of weeks, and I've mentioned subtly here, and maybe not so subtly, is the Seattle Mariners. I love the way they play. I like their combination of talent, youth, and experience. And I just think that they're going to be a tough out. I think their bullpen is severely underrated, and they're going to be a really tough out in the playoffs. That being said, it's probably Astros Dodgers again, when it all comes down to it. But I don't know. I like the Mariners, and of course that probably just put the curse on them to lose in the first wild card game. Anybody pull at your heartstrings there, buddy, that you want to
Yeah,
root for?
yeah. As Mike Greenberg used to say, was the KOD, right? The kiss of death. He would pick a
Yes.
team going into the playoffs at the beginning of the season, and it would be hashtag KOD, and those teams would always lose. Uh,
Right.
Mike, it pains me a little bit because of the like long history and rivalry, but it's the Baltimore Orioles for me. I
Yeah,
mean, they
that's
they have
fair.
been so bad these past 5 6 years, and now they have 90 wins. Mike, the
Yeah.
Baltimore Orioles have 90 wins. The over under on them was 76 and a half. um and right now it's possible, a little bit unlikely, but they could win 100 games.
100 games. Yeah. And
So
their pitching's holding up. I thought, with their young pitchers that haven't gone this deep, and they've talking about holding some back, around the All-Star break, on a pitch limit.
yep.
They've done well. They've continued to play consistently very good baseball. So I can see why you would jump on that for sure.
Yeah,
Um, yeah,
I think, if you look at the National League, kind of all the teams have been there, right? The
right.
Braves, the Phillies, the Brewers, the Dodgers. So I don't feel like, if the Cubs were to get in, I certainly I
Oh,
think
sure.
in the National League, the Cubs would probably be a team, although I like the Phillies too, but they did get to the World Series last year. Would love to see the Cubs, would love to see the Brewers get to the World Series too. Um, but you pin
They
me
just can't hit
down.
enough. Yeah.
Yeah, when you pin me down, the Orioles are a team that I would
Okay.
love to see be successful, because then they're going to bump off the Rays and bump off the Astros,
The Blue
and we could,
Jays. Yeah.
and we can take, great pride in those teams losing, even though it's not the Yankees that beat them. Anyways,
Anyways, let's
we di-
talk about
we digress.
some exciting NCAA football, Dave. And don't worry, folks. I know you're all waiting with bated breath. We'll get to the double dip segment of the program where Dave breaks down the two Syracuse wins. Probably finish with that. Um, but it's going to be a great year in college football, and it's kind of bittersweet for me, buddy, because we're finally at a spot where there's a little bit of parity, and it's all going to end and go to the
Just
two
a little
super
bit.
conferences in the next year or two. But
Yeah.
this year, Jason, the SEC is like Georgia and a bunch of pretty good but not great teams, and
Yeah.
you have, the Big Ten has three legitimate national title contenders in Penn State, Ohio State, and Michigan.
Yep.
The Pac-12, I think, probably has the best quarterback play in all of the country. Now, defense is optional in the Pac-12, so it's always going to be a challenge.
Yep.
It's just quite interesting. And then the ACC, Dave, did you see that Florida State team? Oh my goodness, they are tremendous, big and strong, well coached,
Yep.
and just super impressive. So,
Yep, they've been
on a
building Florida State, and they
right,
certainly had some good wins last year, but yeah, now they're in the driver's seat, as far as the ACC and the ACC's birth in the college football playoff, and all of that. They obviously will have to play a Clemson team that going back 2 weeks now got whooped by Duke,
yes,
and looked just awful. And so Clemson really, I mean, they have to beat Florida State, and if they do, they certainly could still be in the college football playoff, but Clemson does not look the same. Florida State is definitely the class of the ACC. There's no doubt about that. You mentioned the Pac-12, and Caleb Williams with USC is just incredible. Now, I saw some highlights from the game the other night. Mike, the offensive line for USC, he had so much time to throw the ball.
oh
Um,
yeah,
I could make an argument that maybe after a week of doing some lifting and getting some reps, that I could have completed some of those passes. Maybe not the
only a
really
week
long
of
one.
lifting.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
impressed. Yeah, you're
yeah.
in shape. Good for you.
Maybe not the really long pass he threw, but what I saw was, oh my gosh, they're like, look at how great he is. I'm like, Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
everybody could be great if they have 5, 6 seconds to throw the ball.
yeah,
But
that's true.
regardless, I mean, he won the Heisman last year. We know he's uber talented,
Right.
and well on his way. Again, Mike, are there other teams?
Well, there's one ACC team we need to mention is Miami. The U also looks like they're back. They beat Texas A&M 48-33, and I think they're going to be, if they're not, I don't see them in the top 25 that came out today. Oh, 22. They're 22nd, previously not rated. So
Yep.
I think that's another team that certainly might have the athletes, and is that Cristobaldi that used to be at Oregon is there. He was there as an assistant coach, and now he's returned as the head coach at the U. So and Texas A&M on the other side of that loss continues to disappoint every year. This is the year they got the top recruiting class. They're going to put it all together. They've got so
Mm.
many options at all these positions, and they never seem to get it done there in the SEC. So I think you were going to ask any other team. Well, the other big story, Dave, we have to talk about, of course, is your boy, Deion Sanders,
Oh,
and the Colorado
yes.
Buffalo. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Uh,
No doubt. Like them, hate them, whatever you want to do. Deion Sanders at the University of Colorado Boulder, goes there, takes tons of players with him. Get the transfer portal. Everybody wants to play for a guy who's one of the all-time greats and all jacked up. He's got his son playing quarterback, Mike, and what they beat, what it was, Northwestern the first week.
yeah,
Um,
and Nebraska last week. I mean, not
and
exactly murderer's row. I
nope,
understand.
not murderers row, but the fact that I think I saw they scored 30 points in a row, 2 games in a row for the first time in eons.
Right.
Um, they have a sellout crowd. His son, 31 of 42, 393 yards and 2 touchdowns, no picks, certainly. And Colorado gets into the rankings after week 1, and now after week 2 they're up to number 18. Certainly, hey, there's going to be more challenges along the way for them, but easily one of the huge stories early on.
And their
Prime
best
time,
player,
prime
yeah,
time, prime
nice.
time.
All right, Teach. Thanks. Uh, their best player, Tommy Hunter, plays both ways. Is a tremendous wide receiver. Had a huge game the first game. They kind of bracketed him there in Nebraska last week and held him down a little. But then, goes on the other side of the ball and interception. They're practically taking half of the field away and playing over 100 snaps in both games. So if he continues to do that, he's got to be in the Heisman race. It's way too early to talk about Heisman, but his name certainly. And then Deion's son Shador, uh, also right up there. I mean, he looks so calm and polished and um,
Mm-hmm.
just impressive. Now they're going to run into some tougher competition. That's absolutely for sure. And do I expect him to go undefeated or even sneak into like a New Year's Six game? Probably not. But still, for a team that won one game last year, had 83 of the 90 players turnover to this season. Great job out of them, and I love that Prime is doing it against the establishment, against all odds, against all criticism. So good for him.
Yeah,
Uh,
and definitely, some hard games in their schedule. At Oregon, home for USC, at UCLA, home for Oregon State, um, at Washington State, at Utah. So, and these teams are all ranked, the teams that I
right,
just mentioned at
right,
as of right now. So they are going to face some stiffer competition, but as we talk about storylines,
right.
this
That's going to be a big
is
one.
this is certainly a big one. Mike, the one I wanted to mention, and I watched some of this, uh, is Texas
Yes,
against Alabama.
absolutely.
Um, Alabama, and I feel like they looked this way. It almost feels like every year they do this, but they seem to eke out the wins and it gets covered up. but not last year and not this year, Mike. You
They
know,
seem down like talent overall. They're just down like 5%. They don't have that running back that's just a little bit better than anybody. They don't have that wide receiver that's in the long lines they've had recently. And the quarterback looks okay, but he's young and he's going to make
yeah,
mistakes. So yeah, they're
yep,
down
yep,
for
and
sure. And
that's
Texas is
and
back finally.
yeah, yeah, that Ewers, he was just great.
Yes,
He's got a lot of experience back there, and he just, he picked apart Alabama, 349 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. And Alabama was sloppy, 10 penalties, just a lot of really bad. I mean, you can just, they would show
yes,
Nick Saban pacing sidelines, and, you can almost hear him yelling at the team the next day. But Texas looks great. Alabama was at number 3 after this, or going into this game. But I think Texas looks the part, and Alabama looks like, like you said, the SEC is kind of Georgia and a bunch of other, good teams. I'm sure Alabama will be good as we get to the end of the year. But right now, Mike,
sure.
I was not really impressed with them at all, and was very impressed with Texas.
Yeah, no, I agree. Totally. The only other race I want to mention, Dave, it seems like the past 5 years, even the Big Ten East has been Ohio State and Michigan. Whoever wins that game is going to win, and move on to the championship game to play at Wisconsin or somebody crappy from the West Division. This year, I think with that, I don't know if it's Allure or Allery, the quarterback for Penn State, and I
Mm-hmm.
can't pronounce. I haven't heard a pronunciation of his name, but I've seen him play a couple of times already, and he's going to be the difference that they're going to. I think Ohio State's down, dude, and so it's going to be Michigan and Penn State in my mind, and Penn State might actually get to break through this year and make some noise. So I'll be excited to watch that 3-team race, in the Big Ten. All
Yeah,
right,
and
buddy.
yep, and Wisconsin took a loss against
Yeah.
Washington State this last weekend. I mean, it's a non-conference game, obviously, but um,
No, they were thinking
it's
big things in Wisconsin and still ahead of them, but you
sure,
know,
sure. Yeah, an early season, loss on the
non-conference loss should get
road,
over it. Yeah,
you certainly can overtake that. But I'm with you. I think, Penn State at the end of last year, I think we had talked about just, they were playing as well as anybody. And that has continued into this year. Look, it'd be nice to see. I can't root for Penn State, but it would be nice to see somebody else besides Ohio State and Michigan.
right, right. All right, these next 3 minutes are sponsored by Double Dip Company, Double Dip Syracuse University. Dave Pennick, uh, two-time alumni, family, long history. Tell us about their huge win over Western Michigan and what the Syracuse Orange have after they take down Colgate and Western Michigan, the two cream puffs on their schedule. Uh, Things are about to get a little bit steeper with Purdue this week, Army, then Clemson,
Yeah,
North
Clemson, North
Carolina,
Carolina, Florida State.
Florida State. Yeah,
Yeah. Yep. I mean, that certainly is rough. The 65-0 shellacking of Colgate. Um, you take it for what it's worth, but Syracuse has had so many games over the years where they play these teams and they keep them in the game, and they don't win by as much as they need to, and so they just shellac them. Look, and
mm-hmm.
what did I see? Miami, I think, is playing Bethune-Cookman this week. Um,
Right.
they're going to shellac them, and every team has that game, where they just go out and destroy somebody. And so
Sure.
I have no regrets. Syracuse Colgate,
No,
it's a long standing football. I can't call it a
Central New York
rivalry,
battle. Yeah, Colgate's
because
probably never
Colgate
won.
doesn't, they have just not in a long time. It's not like basketball, but we won't get into that. And so then this last week, they play, a Western Michigan team. They're favored, by more than 3 touchdowns, and Western Michigan just right down the field right away, 7-0. Holy crap.
Right.
We're going to lose.
We're going to lose.
No. And then Syracuse just put the pedal to the metal, won 48-7, had a Garrett Schrader scramble And
That was
Colgate,
impressive run.
Colgate, yeah, Colgate, he gets out, gets off to the side, starts to run, and then Colgate loses track, and Schrader has his head up and sees the guy, and throws it and gets an 86-yard touchdown pass where he just outruns everybody. And then right before the half, Syracuse playing defense and Western Michigan driving it, throws an interception, and Syracuse, they run it back at the end of the first half. They run it back 80 plus yards for a pick six touchdown. And that kind of, cemented it at that point. It was 38-7 at halftime. So
Right.
doing what they need to do, some concern. And I apologize, I have not looked at this, but Aronde Gadsden got hurt early on. They're arguably their best, inarguably their best wide receiver. And so some concerns there. But they're doing what they need to do. They're going to Purdue this week. It's a Saturday night on NBC. They're favored by 2.5. Expect them to win. Expect them to win against Army. And then, as Mike mentioned, the gauntlet of Syracuse playing Clemson at home. It's homecoming weekend, so it'll be a lot of hype over that. And then on the road the next week at North Carolina, and on the road at Florida State the week after that. So I think the hope for Syracuse fans is they're 4-0 going into that 3-game gauntlet. They win one of those 3 games and end up at 5-2 after 7 games, with a win, potentially over a ranked opponent, and maybe even on the road. And then, some winnable games in the last 5 with Virginia Tech, BC, Pitt, Georgia Tech, and Wake Forest, that they could get to 6-7 wins and get into a bowl game again. So early on,
so that's going to be a successful season and a representative bowl game, not
yeah,
sneaking into a backdoor bowl game.
No, I mean, you'd hate to see him sneak in, but I think the back-to-back bowl berths, and this has been in the Syracuse media, back-to-back bowl berths for Babers, that has not happened in his 7 years at Syracuse, would cement him. His contract runs through next year. So if he does that, could bring some more recruits in. If he doesn't do that, then what do? You're going in with a lame duck next year. Do you let him go? All of the things that, spiral out of control with recruiting and everything else. So you'd really like to see them win,
Right.
get to another bowl game. And then, maybe they extend Babers, who knows? But there is talent. Look,
Are you a Babers fan, or are you a Babers apologist?
I'm really on the
I
fence.
know.
There's some good things that he's done. There are some absolute head scratching timeouts, lack of challenges, things that as a coach, you just go, what the heck is he doing? And that hasn't changed over his 7 years. So you just hope that it doesn't rear its ugly head in a big game where they need a big win, and he just blows it by blowing an early timeout or something.
Right.
Those types of things have
Right.
happened. I don't dislike him. He has brought Syracuse football back. Certainly Doug Marrone helped to dig them out of the terrible hole. Scott Schaefer kind of made him step back a little bit, and then Babers comes in and gets them moving a little bit more. So they're moving in the right direction. It's just, he's been there 7 years. Scott Schaefer was there 3 years, Marrone 3 years. Like, we're more than a decade now. And is Syracuse in a better spot than before Marrone? Absolutely. But Syracuse fans like to say, in all that time, we've had 1 10-win season. One.
Yeah.
So can we do
right.
a little bit better? Yes. And we need to do better, but we're not, the laughing stock of college football like we were before Doug Marrone came in.
No, absolutely. But nobody's Tricky Dick McPherson, so
nope,
life is good.
Unfortunately.
Great. That's the double dip and the NCAA update. Just wanted to touch base on both of these subjects tonight, just so like Dave said, our tens of fans know that we're still in the mix, still out there, analyzing. We're thinking, so you're listening. We appreciate that, and we'll continue to do so. We know NCAA football will be awesome all season, poised for a great season.
Yep.
And Major League Baseball playoffs are always exciting. We're going to root for some underdogs, and sad that our Yankees won't be there, but continue to enjoy the sport. So while we do all that, we'll report back to you here at Think Tank Sports, and all we ask that you check us out on any of the social media platforms that exist, except TikTok, because we're too old for that. Please interact with us, give us your feedback or comments, especially on YouTube. Like and subscribe. Smash that subscribe button, as Logan Paul says. And I promise we won't make an overpriced, really crappy energy drink sometime in the future. But until then, and we get that level of success,
Yes.
Thank you for your support here at Think Tank Sports, where we think and you listen as we strive for 5. Good night.
See you, everybody.